yesterday we had a very eye-opening meeting with people affected by infertility. And one of the things that came out very clearly is the number of myths around infertility. Because there's so many things that can cause it, we end up deciding ourselves what it is. So a lot of the ladies were talking about their suspicions that they were promiscuous. And as we live in a gendered world, a man who's infertile isn't accused of being promiscuous, it's the woman. We have, in the Ovambo traditions, there's this practice of okutsigirika, the first menstruation flow that goes, and your mother or grandmother has to keep that for you, and if she passes or she forgets where she put it, that's the reason why you can't have children. And these are deeply held beliefs. There's beliefs that you've been bewitched by your mother-in-law who doesn't like you. There are names being called, and you're seeing these ugly names finding themselves even in the political domain, where people who don't have children are being mocked for that. You're seeing people in the political arena saying to others, meme wa zero, tate wa zero, cement bar moeder, wind ballas, or whatever it is, what we say to one another. But we have these horrible names that we've normalized into our public discourse, which is not helpful. And I'm glad to see representatives of the Cancer Association here. I'm glad to see Dr. Kimberg, Dr. van der Korf, and other health practitioners, because part of what we want to do is to bust the myths and be more sensitive. I know even with myself, my goodness, I'm over 44 years old. My husband is hitting 80 soon, but you still have geniuses who keep on asking, has something happened there at State House? I don't understand it. It makes no logical sense. Between my husband and I, we can have a netball team. He's got 5 kids, I've got 2. But there's a belief that in order for a married couple to cement your relationship, you must share a child. A child isn't a psychologist or a marriage counselor. A child doesn't save a rotten marriage. Or a child doesn't strengthen a marriage that has flaws. Either you have a good relationship or you don't. So stop this. When is the baptism? I understand it. But if I experience it like that, I can't imagine the pain it causes those who really do want to have children, who really are of reproductive health and age, and it pains them. And we've got Dr. Susanna here, who's absolutely passionate about the issue and has dealt with a lot of women, so she'll speak from the health perspective. She's got very valuable insights. We've got somebody who's affected or has a conversation to have around her own experiences. I'm obviously speaking from the Office of the First Lady, and from our perspective, it's a topic, so we don't commit to topics unless we're going to back it. So I say one of the most common things I'm asked for is to be a patron of many things, and I decline, because I don't really have time to do a lot of the things. But infertility has become a subject matter that keeps colliding with the work that we're doing. I see our executive director of the Ministry of Gender and Welfare is here, and she'll know, for instance, some of the issues that we're starting to see around surrogate mothers. We can speak about that later, but it does have a link to infertility. We're picking it up in a lot of our gender-based violence work. So gender-based violence isn't just when women are killed or assaulted. It's also financial abuse, it's emotional abuse, it's other forms that manifest themselves. We're picking it up in young people who've been raped, and when they do want to have children, there's long-lasting consequences. So we're picking it up wherever we go as the Office of the First Lady. And the more we're talking about reproductive health, the more we see the extreme hypocrisy of our society. So if a woman doesn't want to have a child, we judge her. If a woman wants to have family planning, we judge her. If a woman can't have a child, we judge her. So I'm not sure where this ownership has come from, what a woman's reproductive path becomes and how complex this path becomes. Some women's infertility comes from all kinds of things. It could be she has to choose between cancer treatment and infertility treatment. There's people where it's a a number of factors. Each one of our paths is different and complicated. But at the end of the day, it's our paths, and we do not need the societal pressure all the time. So to me, I'm as for women who don't want to have a child as I am for women who want to have children, because ultimately it's about choice. And that's where we come from on this. Dr. Rasha will speak for herself. The reason we have a pastor here, and there's a female pastor who was also part of yesterday's deliberations, is church leaders are saying to us, we need help. Increasingly, we're encountering this issue. We don't know what to say. We don't want to worsen issues. Yesterday, one of the participants talked about the impression is almost as if you're not having a child, it's because your faith isn't strong enough. Or there's something, you're not praying hard enough. God is going to deliver. And infertility dates back to the Bible. Elizabeth, there's many women who eventually did come through blessings, and even Mary herself, that was... But that's not how it is anymore. And we have to look at the science. And Abraham, many in the Bible, but it was also an issue in the Bible where women were judged for not being able to have children. So we need our spiritual pastors, we need our healthcare service providers, many of whom are present in this room today, because one of the issues that also came out a lot is attitudes and some of the things that are said by healthcare workers to women and men facing this challenge. So we find there are great healthcare practitioners who are passionate about the issue and who've taken their own time to go onto radios and to really educate populations about infertility. And there are others who are just like, well, tough luck. So attitudes of frontline service providers like pastors, like healthcare practitioners, but also our own attitudes as a country, as family members. Yesterday there were lots of family members supporting their friends. And another thing that comes out increasingly with attitudes is our own attitudes. The things we say to couples who are struggling to conceive, insensitive, uninformed, not helpful. This practice, for instance, where it's almost permitted for a husband to impregnate somewhere else within a marital context simply because there's a suspicion his wife isn't capable of bearing children. Or the terrible myth that extends itself even into HIV, that you must have sex with your sister, with the sister of your wife, if she's incapable of providing children. And the conflict it brings between husband and wife. Many marriages are not surviving the emotional complexity of infertility and childlessness. And we're not even talking about the inequality and how it manifests itself in terms of the cost. A statement that was made yesterday by one of the ladies is that I feel as if my body has become a paycheck for doctors. A treatment can cost from 80,000 Namibian dollars to 200,000 Namibian dollars. People are selling cars, houses, and a lot of this treatment isn't effective immediately or at all. And this is for middle class who can afford access to loans, who maybe have medical insurance. We're not talking about people who do not have the means and who end up going to traditional healers, who aggravate situations. We're not talking about women who have cancer or who have other challenges that they're facing with, and they have to make a decision. Do I go on this treatment or do I go on that treatment? Other women are making decisions about, am I going to study, am I going to start a business, or am I going to save up so I can afford fertility treatment? Then we obviously have men who are also affected because we need the male voice to come out. Fertility is a shared responsibility. And we do want to engage men more in this conversation because at the end of the day, a woman is not just about her reproductive capacity, but neither are men. It is a 50-50 issue. The Holy Spirit no longer impregnates, so somebody has to be doing it. And we want men to be part of this conversation in a very meaningful way. So that's really, so I'm not going to participate anymore in this panel. I want to let the people who are around here. But what I want to say lastly as the Office of the First Lady is, to me, these 2 days are the easy part. It's getting the awareness done. After Thursday is where the hard work sets in. And we've made a number of commitments to each other yesterday that we will immediately establish a network where we will try and do a national committee of people, a support system, and have people in every single region. We will have seminars on these issues. We're having a media training workshop later this afternoon. Tomorrow we're launching a booklet at a school. But we will be a little bit more active and engaged in this topic post this event. We will be engaging some of the policy issues, and I'm glad, Deputy Minister, you were very careful not to set, or rather, you were careful to manage expectations that yes, we're worried about it, but you know, guys, well, maybe sometime, someday, one day. But I think what she made clear is that it is an issue that is coming out, but we need statistics. We can't speak about a challenge we don't understand. So we do want to engage some of the policy issues around funding, and not only from a state perspective, but also from a private medical care perspective. There are challenges around private medical care and what it does provide. But we also know it's only 10 to 15% of this population who have medical care. So we will have to engage the issues around state. We must engage partners like the Cancer Association, Dr. Kimberg, Dr. van der Kolff. We must engage medical practitioners in private practice, because I think that's where we can get a sense of what the statistics and the causes look like, because we can't have statistics and information from public health because they don't treat it. And then I just want to expand on what you said around primary health care and the full spectrum of family planning, which includes infertility, that we must approach this topic from a non-judgmental perspective. We are too judgmental when we speak about reproductive health and rights in this country. And that's partly why we stigmatize and hide and tell each other our own stories which don't make sense, but we believe them. It's because we're putting it underground. So from my perspective no, I'm struggling to say as First Lady. I hate referring to myself in the third party. So from my perspective as Monica, from my perspective as a Merck More Than a Mother ambassador, we are here for the long term. When you see a cattle herder leading cattle, where does he stand? He stands behind. So we're not going to be in the front of this. We are going to support those who are going to champion it. So thank you very much.
I'm going to jump straight into my first question, and this is to you, Dr. Kelej. First of all, we need to acknowledge the number of men in the room today, because usually this is a subject that would, and again, it's the mindset, attract women. And we're on a great path to changing that. But the reality is that there is a long-rooted subconscious understanding that women are to blame for infertility. You have vast experience in the subject. How do we change the narrative?
First, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Madam Monica, the First Lady of Namibia, and the Ambassador of Merck More Than a Mother for the great passion I have seen these 2 days. And actually, from the minute we met until now, I've seen a lot of progress, so thank you very much. I think that we are going to do a huge impact and significant impact in the country with your support. Thank you very much. Secondly, just to let you know that when we had the meeting yesterday, everything was clear to us that there is certain things we needed to change, like the narrative, like you said. There is lack of information, so we need to improve access to information about prevention, about male infertility. It means that it takes two to have a child. It's not only the mother or the woman who is responsible for children. And infertility has nothing to do with sexuality or your performance as husband and wife. This is very important for men specifically, because they take it as a taboo that maybe he's not a man enough, or he's not doing his job as a husband, or sexually he's not performing well. It has nothing to do with it, because you can see a father of 10 sons and he is not sexually strong, and the opposite. So we have to emphasize on that. male infertility, prevention. And then there is a lot of technologies around for management. That's why we want to improve access to health by training the local experts, the local fertility experts in the country. So the couple who seek help, they can maybe need help of small intervention, like 5 days intervention, and the delaying of this intervention because there is no attention of a healthcare provider who specialized in this, it might complicate the subject. So having these local experts around, they will improve very much the impact, or the impact we would like to have, the support for the infertile couple or the childless couple, or the couple who's seeking to have children, because they might only, as I said, need maybe a course of antibiotic, a course of tablet. And of course, raising awareness for prevention and raising awareness of breaking the stigma of infertility. And hence, these take us to change the mindset, the culture shift we want to create. And we thought that art and media is a very good and critical partner to make any community culture shift. Media enter every house. Media, if they understand the topic properly and normalize the issue, so it become like a normal thing, like diabetes, like hypertension, like you remember HIV long time ago when it was a taboo, and now everyone talks about it normally. So media, by the training we are going to provide, and the Media Recognition Award, and the Fashion Award, and the Filmmaking Award, all these things will sensitize the community, be the voice of the voiceless, break the silence, make everyone feel that they are not alone, and say to the community, to the people, they think that it is okay to insult others, to discriminate others for something they never had any control over. It's okay. Because I believe that not everyone is evil, or not, people are not evil by nature. They don't really mean to hurt people and to insult them and to break their soul. To break their soul. They don't mean that. But when they know that they're doing this, it is more criminal than killing someone, to break someone's soul, to make him feel that he's ashamed, he's not worthless, he has no values, he has to hide, he has no life. And we are the one who's making others feel this way. When we know it's incorrect, I think we're going to stop it, I'm sure. And here is our rules, the advocacy of Her Excellency the First Lady, the champions of the healthcare providers we train, the media we are going to train, the art, the singers, the filmmakers, all these people will be talking every day. And within maybe a few years, 2-3 years, these things which we think that is incorrect will change. The narrative will change. And people will think that this is your own business. If you want to have a child, it's your own business, nothing to blame you, there's nothing wrong you have done, there is no myth. And if you have a child, it's okay also, we are going to be happy for you. So this is, I think, the plan. And of course, any new ideas, we are going to take it forward.
And as the First Lady said, the hard work obviously starts after Thursday, because then it is about action. Let's just for a moment focus on the entering age of fertility, because I believe that it needs to start somewhere. And as you've rightly mentioned, Dr. Kelej, there's a lack of information, there's a lack of education. What is the entering age of fertility, and how are health problems identified in order to prevent and cure infertility?
Just one intervention. There is certain things, of course, you can do when you are, since young ages, from young age to not to prevent, but to maintain your fertility aspect. Regular checkup, for example. There are small things like chlamydia, and the small infection from lack of hygiene can cause infection. If it's not treated, they have no symptoms. If it is not treated early enough, it can go further and spoil their reproductive health. Of course, exposure to toxins, pesticides, paint, and all this also can affect the infertility of men and women. Other things like eating healthy balance, also keeping your weight balanced, like not very underweight or overweight. This also very important. Exercise regularly. all these things we are prevent the communicable, non-communicable diseases like diabetes and hypertension also affect infertility or fertility. This is for women and for men. There is leaflets we produce for prevention of infertility for male and women, and we are going to distribute it, and it will be on our website and Her Excellency also social media and website, so everyone can have access to this. And we also going to produce together something else about the myth busting. Yes, busting. So all these myth theories that people are taking forward and believe in it, we are going to address it also in these materials.
So I just want to reiterate that I was asked to make this as informal as possible, and I would really invite our guests here to also make your contribution if you have any questions. I'm going to throw this question into our audience. We have the likes of Dr. Kimberg and Dr. van der Kolff here. Earlier I shared my story on, or my personal story, and thanks to Dr. Kimberg, who found what the issue was. Between yourself, Doctor, and Dr. van der Kolff, how common is infertility in Namibia?
Fertility, what is it? We can't talk about the tip of an iceberg here, because we don't have icebergs. But we could describe it as the ears of the hippopotamus. It's just a little bit that we see. The underlying problem is vast. And to start with Dr. Malunga, it's education. A large part of it starts with education. Because, just to give you an example, I had a 15-year-old girl who came to me with pregnancy. I'm not going to talk about abortion or bring up the issue. We have a pastor here, so there's strong feelings on both sides. When I asked her, don't you get sex education at school? She said, yes. So I said, what do they tell you? What do they do? She said, this man walks into the classroom and he says to us, just because the boy takes you out on a date doesn't mean you have to give him the honey pot. That's the sort of that's where a large part of the problem starts. And we're not going to talk about the financial side of it. It's a major problem because the cost of IVF, for example, once we've done the basic workup, we can work between 50 and 100,000. And a lot of the people are not in the category or the financial category where they can afford that. So the importance of state and private cooperation becomes increasingly important. And I think we are prepared to do our side and contribute our side and work together with the state to try and help resolve this problem.
I just wanted to say that I think for the issues where accessibility is a problem, and I think with the Merck Foundation, I can proudly say that sitting right there in the community where I am, it is bringing an impact, even though it's a small thing that we're doing. But you know, having been trained, now you tend to understand what are the real issues that we can deal with right there in the community. We tend now to see what are the referral systems that we can institute so that we can refer patients rightly to our specialists right here in Windhoek, and try and encourage women to come for simple assessments that we're talking about, issues about early detection of infection, you know, counseling women in terms of, you know, when to have sex, because people assume that anytime you would have sex, then you would conceive. And they've been doing that for years. And it's simple things like those that are actually bringing an impact. So for me, I think more is to be proud of the fact that I was given that opportunity to enlighten us more in terms of infertility and sitting right there in community. I come from Rundu, and someone else was asking me, are you practicing in Windhoek? And I said, no, I'm in Rundu. And why? I said, I think that's where I'm supposed to be. So there's quite a lot that we can do, and there are quite a lot of people that need to be trained, and these opportunities that we're really getting, we're really grateful, because they will really, in the end, bring the impact that we deserve. We're starting small, but I think when we're looking forward, where we're going, things are going to start to appear, and the impact that we're expecting will really come through. Thank you.
We were talking about changing the narrative earlier, and this is an open question. Is there any other tool that we can look at to that's available to assess the social stigma among infertile couples?
I think, Rasha, if I may answer that, I think for mostly now it will be, we underestimate social media. We underestimate the media, actually, because right now that's our point of reference. Because everybody has a cell phone, everybody has access to internet. I'm not talking now about my grandmothers and uncles in the rural villages, but as young people, we have access to social media. And that's one of the platforms that we can actually use to create awareness. And actually yesterday I was actually, I mentioned the fact, and Josie is here, the radio. The radio has such an impact, because even though Mame Sophia, who sits in Oshikuku in a village, doesn't have access to electricity, but she has a solar panel or a battery radio, she can actually listen to that in her vernacular language. So that's the role where the radio presenters, the media has actually a great role to play in it, because I was actually complaining yesterday, if you listen to the radio in the morning, between 7 and 9, I think that's where you can get your highest audiences, because then that's where you can actually bring out the information and actually spread it out there. So I think social media has actually a great role to play.
I think that's quite important, and the issue is really about designing the message right. If you design the message right, then the message gets to the targeted viewer or targeted audience, rightly so that we then bust those myths. We then start talking about what are the real issues. I've had stories for the first time that I haven't had. I've been in radio for over 20 years, and amazingly, I was put into a room that opened my eyes to something new, and really, journalists and whether radio or print are really seeking for information on a daily basis. And if the information is designed right and is presented right, then we are able to allow those foot soldiers, those pen soldiers, those microphone soldiers to then be able to make this a national issue rather than it being a specific group issue. And that's really the issue, because overall we make jokes that we take for granted. We take for granted by saying, hey, and you can't get kids, and all of these things that we say, we don't realize the impact that it has on people. Yesterday, I was almost in tears. And it was because of the fact that you hear people pouring out their hearts about their issues. And she's one of those people that really got me sitting and saying, wow, there are stories to tell about this issue, and we have simply ignored them. So social media is good, but I always say that the messaging must be designed right, because social media can also be detrimental to this issue. So we need to look at how we engage the media, and the media can start having that conversation, and all of us have that conversation. This panel discussion is a start of that conversation, but it mustn't be limited here. I know there are some that are streaming, or this message is being streamed, and that's the right platforms that we need to create. Radio can create that in vernaculars. Print can have those conversations as well by writing, and people can read on them, because there's a lot that can be said. Costs, the issues that affect this, where does it come from? And I think it was illustrated here today that is my 2 cents. Hopefully that gives a clear indication of where my background comes from and what I'm saying, that we need to be able to have the conversation, but the right conversation.
It's my great honor to share my emotions as an infertile woman. Whenever I feel weak, I always remember the things that makes me strong. Whenever I start to doubt myself, I remember those who believed in me. So literally, people make others' name dirty or betray others so that they can at least shine too, forgetting that life is too short. Myself, I've got a very supportive husband. He always keeps telling me or encouraging me. He always tells me to stay strong, to stay away from people who seeks private reconciliation after putting me through public humiliations. So I've got few notes, actually 5 points to share with you. This infertility have got affected my education, my future, you can name it. As I was sitting, I was telling my husband, wow, look at the deputy minister. I remember back in the years, us advocating about swapo back in Omaike. I actually grew up in Gobabes. Maybe you've been forgotten me because I moved back to the north, actually. So this infertility has put a wall in front of me. I've said I've got few points to make. I had a 5 to 6 weeks miscarriage back in October 2016. After 3 months of getting married, till now, I don't know what is really causing my infertility. After consulting different specialists, no treatment available that I can afford. Yet, I was informed that IVF is the only option I can consider according to the specialist. My husband is unemployed. I'm a health assistant with a little salary that I can't afford to go for IVF, actually. Therefore, we can't afford IVF, really. Let's talk about the stigma that I've suffered. Zero's mother are the named I've been called. Lot of time, family members from my side would ask me for financial support with the little I have without them considering my happiness. Friends will ask as to when is the baby coming. After a couple of years in marriage. In July, I will be 4 years in marriage, being as Zero's mother. The support structure. My husband was very supportive, my in-laws, my mom. I'm of the 2 siblings, 3 ladies, and I'm the last born. And I'm the one taking care of my 84-year-old mom. Regardless of her ill health, be it food or whatever at home, I'm the one to take care of her. And I've got my home also to take care of. So just imagine this whole lot of that you are carrying on your burden, on your shoulder. The other support people that I'm having is my former supervisor by the name Sister, she's a nurse by profession, Sister Otilie Cavella. And not to forget the Merck Foundation. Really, when I met Merck Foundation, specifically with Dr. Kelej, it opens my door. It turns on the green light upon me. Even though sometimes I cannot control my emotion, just imagine you going in your bedroom. Instead of you sleeping and resting, you cry, you pray, you can name it. My advice to my fellow infertile women and men: believe in yourself. Do not take advice from people who are not experts. Do your research. Please, and I emphasized, do not take advice from the people who are not experts, because they are causing a damage on our only given body that we are having. Remember that the Charlotte talking about the drugs, the alcohol, and all those. Yes, it's really affecting our infertility. I'm not trying to make myself as a clean somebody. Me being a non-alcoholic, a non-drug consumer, yet today I'm going through infertility. How about those who are consuming alcohol, who are abusing drugs and all those? Remember, life is too short. With these few notes, please, let's try to live a healthy, fulfilling life. I've got a few requests that I would like the government to help us. If possible, can the government train our local doctors in terms of counseling in the fertility department, nurses, health assistants like I myself? I'm doing the counseling of HIV treatment, HIV counseling, and all those. Why not fertility counseling? Why? If we've got medical practitioners in the hospitals that are seeing patients on a daily basis, why are they not being trained on fertility counseling so that they can help us? They are meeting, there's this issue that is touching my heart. Kids, young, I can call them young babies, have been raped. If a certain parent come up with their raped baby or the raped daughter, please try by almost best to do everything to see if you can prevent the infertility, since we said rape can also cause infertility. Please, let's also do this. I'm also not excluding our pastors. Yes, we also need our pastors to be trained in fertility counseling, since they are also doing premarital counseling. Why not fertility counseling? And I repeat myself, let's live a healthy and fertility life. I thank you.
Thank you. Linda, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And now over to Pastor. Can you briefly share with us your experience when it comes to guiding and being there for couples who face infertility?
Thank you very much. My experience is that our community members are very much open to their pastors. They trust them. They give all their problems to us pastors. And then when they are giving their problems to us pastors, they believe that they are going to get help. But sometimes our clients, they go back home frustrated. They go back home frustrated because when they are coming to our offices to seek for help, some pastors, or even most of us, we don't have the correct information concerning infertility. And then many times we are telling them, you don't have strong faith. You are not praying. You must pray hard. You must pray every day. And then God can make it happen. There is nothing impossible. And then they go back home, they go and pray, and nothing is happening. So I am appealing to Merck Foundation. Please, we need trainings as pastors, because we are the one at the forefront. People, when they are getting married, we are doing this pre-marital counseling, and infertility is included. But sometimes we are not telling what is infertility, but we are only saying it for the matter of saying it, and then that is all. But if we are getting a training on this, I am sure we are going to help this nation. And then I am appealing to you, Merck Foundation, and then our government of the Republic of Namibia. This is a matter of urgency. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pastor.
Thank you very much. We actually agreed with Her Excellency, the First Lady of Namibia, Madam Monica, yesterday that we are going to consider training for the pastors. I'm actually asking also Dr. Lugano. We would like to develop a course that we can give to the pastors, relevant to, the information, scientific information, of course, the cultural information. Maybe you can connect with pastor, yes, and agree on what the topics needs to be addressed, and we develop something, and maybe we can have our trainees, Dr. Shores and Dr. Lorango, to go around different provinces to meet pastors and, yes, figure it out, yes.
So one thing we always look at is impact. And I think the engagement of medical aids is important, but we must also look at how many people have access to medical aid. So if it's constructive utilization of advocacy resources, you'd probably want to look at something that was being advocated earlier by Dr. Kimberg, where you want a closer cooperation between public and private health providers, including the medical aids, so that we cover the full spectrum of people impacted. If we were just to focus on advocating for medical aids, to cover their members fully, would probably only cover about 10 to 15% of the people who are affected, because that's the ratio of people who have medical aid, and would leave out a significant amount of people out of that process. So I absolutely agree with you. There's more engagement necessary, because the financial burden adds to the emotional stress. Stress being another factor that you can't conceive, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and self-defeating exercise. So the financial issues are real, and we must make sure that we approach that issue in an equitable manner and not leave people out who don't have access to medical aid and who aren't employed, and who may have other financial obligations, or who are also battling with cancer treatment, or something to that effect. And so yes, the financial burden we recognize, and it is going to be one of our key advocacy points, and that's why I'm happy we've got very passionate ministers like our Deputy Minister of Health, and then people in the private sector like Dr. Kimberg and Dr. van der Koffen. There's nurses here, there's other doctors here who are as passionate as they are, and we must get closer collaboration there. And we must bring medical aids into the discussion.
We will be very much in collaboration with Her Excellency the First Lady Office to implement everything we have agreed and figure out new ways. Thank you.
Express my gratitude for the people in this room who I know are impacted by issues of infertility, and I agree with the doctors. What is infertility? When are you infertile? Because there have been couples who've struggled for 6 years, and in the 7th year they conceive. And also people who battle with issues of childlessness, because there are people who don't have children but also suffer the social stigma that comes with that. And that we really commit a collaborative approach with everybody affected, and like the lady who stood up talking about her aunt and her sister, sometimes it impacts our families in very intimate ways, and it brings about very serious areas of family conflict. It's not only just the divorces, but then you have in-laws who are not speaking to each other because of the manner in which something was dealt with, siblings who are not speaking to each other because of insensitivity issues. So we're really going to commit ourselves to the public awareness part. Dr. Kimberg raised a very important point about comprehensive sexuality education in schools. It is a sensitive topic, but we don't have the ability to shy away from sensitive topics when we can see their impact socially, economically, financially on people. And making sure that children, and that's why I'm proud of Dr. Rasha for pushing the booklets that focus on children, to educate them, but also to remove them away, because children are our echoes. What we say, our children also say. So they also stigmatize and judge and tease one another around these issues. So I want to thank everybody sitting here. We will push some of the advocacy points more, and sometimes we'll disagree. The word abortion was only used once and by a medical practitioner. And we need to start getting used to using this word, because we can't avoid this discussion and its complications and its implications simply because we're sensitive about it. So sometimes we'll all have one agenda of resolving stigma around infertility, but we're going to disagree on other things around comprehensive sexual education, around abortion, around other issues of reproductive health. And that's fine, as long as we don't stand in the way of the bigger conversation of the impact that it has on our public health, because even if public health doesn't treat infertility, you surely will treat cases of gender-based violence. You surely will have issues of mental health that manifest themselves differently in your system. So I like your point of the holistic approach, and we saw the pain here, and it's not restricted to her. I've seen a lot of this pain. And we must also speak about counseling, about the grief, the pain, the sense of loss, the hopelessness that comes with this. I was making a joke, but it wasn't really a joke yesterday about myself, about how generally when people throw very heavy rocks at me, I kind of cuss them and I'm fine. Like, nothing. It doesn't impact me. But then one day somebody will just make a nasty remark about, hey, First Lady didn't comb her hair today. Ooh, and the tears will come. I'm not really worried about the comment about my hair. I think it's an accumulation of stress, of pressure, of just feelings of despondency. And I see it here as well. I see very strong people dealing with very big things around infertility, around childlessness, and they're so strong about it. But one day they pick up a newspaper and they read an article about a baby dumping, and it breaks them. And it's the accumulation. Yesterday we were being told about a police officer who deals with baby dumping cases, see these kids who are dumped and who can't have children. And then in the same vein, you're tempted to dump the woman who dumped, but then you think about the realities that she went through in order to get her into that situation. And then you realize, actually, we've got a lot of work to do. And a lot of that work starts with our own attitudes and mindsets and judgmental behavior towards things that we are not affected by. So I thank each one of you. I see Dinia from UNFPA is here, our executive director from the Ministry of Gender. I see Petronella from Ministry of Health. I see lots of people affected. I see health professionals. Rolf, my brother, thank you for coming. I'll never forget my ED from State House. She's such a support. She's been on my case about infertility, and I keep on, yeah, I'll do it, wait, because I want to commit to something. We've got our executive president of PAO. She's the leader of the SWAPO Women's Council. She's a parliamentarian, and I don't want to make infertility about female parliamentarians taking the issue, because what about male parliamentarians? They are also affected by this. But it is important for you to have you here. It is painful for some of us when we are prudish about topics of menstruation, about abortion, about difficult topics, because that's actually why you're there. You are our voices. And our personal views must stand back sometimes. And advocate for those who don't have the voices. So thank you to each one of you. I wish I could call all of you out, but I can't. I just want to be grateful. So thank you.